Loyola graduate. When did you graduate? I'm
2015.
trying to remember. It's like all runs together for me.
2015.
2015. So, wow, 5 years you've been out.
Yeah, I know.
So one of the things we're trying to do in Forum this semester is I want to focus on some alumni. Because one of the things from Forum was like all the students who were really into it would always go up and talk to the guest after. And like I know people who got jobs and internships and all sorts of stuff from going to talk to Forum guests. So I thought if we had some Forum guests that were people that the go-getter students might not be afraid to drop an email to at some point, that
Yeah,
we could keep some of that network thing happening. And
absolutely.
also like let them see themselves in our forum guests. Like, okay, here are people who are in those chairs or behind those headphones, I guess at this point, 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and look, they're doing stuff. So give me a little bit of the story. When you graduated, what was the next thing you did?
I was lucky enough to actually have a job the day I graduated. Is this so loud? Can you hear the gardeners?
No, I cannot over here.
Okay, good. Um, yeah, I was lucky enough to have a job right when I graduated, actually. So I started a month, like July or June of 2015, working at Buna Murray. But to preface that is I interned there in college. So it was, you know, what I like, if anyone gets anything from this conversation is you got to intern, just put yourself out there.
So you grew up in Los Angeles, right? Like you're
I
from
did.
that area. So
I'm
you
from,
did that internship in the summer? Was that the thing?
I did. So my first internship was actually because of John Snyder. I went in one meeting, I don't know. And he's like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I kind of like music supervision." And he's like, "Oh, there's this guy, Joel C. High in LA. And um, at Loyola, yeah, I called him, interviewed, and then I interned there over the summer. That was freshman year going to sophomore year. And I'm still friends with him to this day. Like, we still work with each other. And he's just such a good guy. I mean, and that's all John Snyder. And that's just because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I loved music.
Right.
And, just from that conversation with John, it was like, oh, check this out. I will say, yes, I am lucky that I am in LA and I was able to like go home and have these resources. That is something I think that is important to note. But I think also in this day and age, there's like, well, look what we're doing. There's like
Right.
different, right. So yeah, so that was my first internship, and then my second internship was over the summer, sophomore to junior, and that was yes in LA at Buna Murray, and then in turn, that's how I got my job right after.
So what was your first job? What were you doing on that gig?
So I was doing, I got hired as a music coordinator. And so that job entailed finding new artists. It was like a music supervision job, at the initial steps. So I was doing like recognizance, like looking at artists that were cool, but super green and super,
Was
didn't.
this for like a TV show or what were you
Oh
looking
yeah.
for artists
So
for?
Buna Murray is a reality TV production company. So they're all in house. They do. They started with Real World. So Real World, all the Kardashian shows.
That's right. Now
That
I remember teasing you that I wanted better music on the Kardashian show because that was
yeah,
on your first gig. Okay,
yeah,
great.
exactly. So I think we. Oh, you know what? I think I licensed. Or I know I licensed Joe Boston's like first EP or whatever, Shallow.
I was gonna say Shalou now. Nobody knows who Joe Boston is
I
anymore.
know Joe, who's also in LA, and who we're still, we still talk with each other, and so I love the program. It's just like you meet people that are for life. But yeah, so it was like all those shows. I think I worked on the Mariah Carey show, Bad Girls
Well,
Club.
don't you know where you're gonna get all the music for the Mariah Carey show? I mean, that seems like
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay. Well, so that was the other part of my job I started in June, and then in August, the head of the licensing department left to go to DreamWorks, and I had interned with him um, when I was in college, and we just got along because he was a really good leader and a mentor. His name is Vince, and was a good teacher. You know, because I didn't know. I learned the basis of, you get a really good idea of like what the music industry is about, but until you really like tangibly and physically do something,
Hmm.
you know, which is, yeah, so it's part and parcel. So in August I started doing all the licensing because we were looking for somebody to take over, and I kind of had this background in licensing, so I ended up being the person clearing all this music for all of our shows. And so the Mariah Carey thing, I was like finding samples, and I had no idea what I was doing, but it was fun, and I learned so much. Um, and so yeah, that was like the two parts of my job. It was a lot of
So
life.
was there somebody like guiding you through the figuring out what you're doing, or did they like really just leave you to like, okay, go sort this out?
It was a little bit of both, I have to say. I personally am just like a go getter. Which makes me I'm probably like I'm crazy, delusional. I don't know, but I also liked the structure of licensing and clearance. It was like, here's the sync request, here's the master request, like, put this info in, make a spreadsheet, kind of like that structure.
Right. It was there was a thing, there were like rules you could plug this in here, do that, get this
Right.
signed. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, 100%. Like I had my boss Dave Stone, who's awesome, and he like and I tag teamed, and we did things, and then we ended up hiring this woman Stephanie, who's awesome, and we worked together to like uh, finish that, to do the licensing, and but she was the leader on that, and so that gave me more time to find more music, and um
What was the hardest thing to clear in that period of time?
um the hardest thing to clear. It was a Mariah.
Or even better, what's the funniest story of trying to clear something? That's
It
really what
has
I'm
to
looking for.
be this Kanye song, because we did a lot of, I think it was Black Skinhead, and there was a sample on it from, and I'm gonna mess this up. I think it was like a Bulgarian rock band. I swear to God, it was something like, "What do you mean?" And so um, and of course it's like 2% of the song. You know what I mean? It's just yeah. And so I remember getting an email from some lawyer in New York saying, we're gonna sue you guys. I'm like 21. How old was I at that point? 21, 22. Like, what is happening? We just want to clear the song, and Kanye used this person and didn't clear it. And so it was this kind
So
of
was the
awful.
problem that Kanye hadn't cleared it, or do you
Yeah.
have to re-clear each sample? So
No.
like
So,
when you sync something that's got samples,
right.
you get the permission to use that master. Like all of their clearances are included, right?
Hmm. Well, no. So if so you have the publishing, right? So if you yeah, so if I was clearing Black Skinhead, so I had to reach out to every single publisher, every single person that had um a
Had a
stake.
piece of it. Yeah.
And I think what happened was there was already an issue with that sample. Like, I don't know if it had been 100% finished. So when I sent them, hey, like, we're clearing your 2% of this song, they were like, no, that's not a thing. And then the Mariah Carey thing was funny. But this is the thing that I like. And if people are interested in this kind of world of licensing and clearance, um, I lost my train of thought. Oh, there was a Mariah Carey song, and I forget what it was, which song it was, but there was like a 0.08%, or like a 0.001. I don't know. It was something ridiculous. And I tracked this woman down, I think like on Twitter, and she was like in Nashville or in Tennessee, or obviously she was in somewhere in the South, and she had this claim. She was like, yeah, I do own this. Like, and we found her, and then we cleared the song, and like it was great.
And she got her like $12 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, then I think the show ended up like not. Maybe it did come out. I don't know. I ended up leaving a year and a half after that. I was there for a year and a half, and I got this job at Ultra, which is like when
Hmm.
that last time I was um, at Loyola, actually.
Right.
Um, and I left Buena Murray because I loved it there. Like that was family. They were family, and I still talk to a lot of them. But I knew I wanted to do something in music, like in I wanted to like work with artists more.
Right.
So that was like a big fuck excuse my like a big risk, and
Yeah.
and that was really hard to
So
just.
what'd you do? What were you doing for Ultra?
So Ultra got hired to be the manager of what was my title? Manager of Sync, yeah. And so I
So it was the other side. You were trying to place the artist instead of
yeah,
the show producer trying to clear the artist.
and find the artist, right? I was like a
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't like that at all.
Really? Why? What was the difference?
So, the sales part, which is actually funny because I feel almost like I'm in sales now, essentially as a manager. Um, but the sync thing, it's interesting because the sync world is so much music out there. I mean, there's 50,000 songs uploaded to Spotify like every day. So it's just
Right.
inundated by music. And for me, like music should just be like passion. And like if a music supervisor just doesn't like a song, I can't be that person to be like, please, like I'm not saying this is the what, sync
Sure.
at all, right? But for me, and I wasn't super passionate about electronic music, but
Hmm.
Ultra is like legit. So that's just my personally. But I figured, and I liked the people that were there, and so I, figured this would be like a way to branch out. You know what I mean? And like
Right.
get in there. But yeah, the the pitching side wasn't my favorite.
Well,
Uh,
because it takes you from having looking at music that's all the music in the world to
mhm.
I have this specific set of these things that I'm trying to get placed.
Yeah,
So you're dealing with like a really narrow range of music instead
yeah.
of a really wide range of music. I'd never thought about that in that way. That's an interesting observation.
And um, and for some reason yeah, it was just hard for me. Like it just wasn't for me. I think at the end of the day, um, and I'm glad we're like recording this because you can tell me if you want to keep this in or not. Because I just want to keep it real with these kids. Like
Sure.
I was fired like 3 weeks or something after I talked at Loyola. Like
Really?
I was fired from that job. And it was the worst. I was unemployed for about a year, I think. And it was really fucking hard. Like it was really hard. Um, but thank God it happened because um, that wasn't for me. And I, am in this new position now where I'm like so happy and grateful and like this is what music's about for me.
So did the stuff that you learned on the Ultra experience end up actually leading to what you're doing now?
So yeah, so when I was unemployed, I was hustling and trying to find jobs, but I didn't
Well,
necessarily.
because I remember
Yeah,
the last time I was in LA, we were trying to have a Loyola alumni Dodgers game,
yeah.
and y'all all bailed on me because there was some networking event or something. You're like, I'm sorry, I got to go to this thing.
Oh my god, just like that's
Which was
right.
fine. I watched the Dodgers on TV. It was okay. But
Now I'm hurt because when are we ever gonna do that again?
well, if there's ever baseball again, I'll come to LA. We'll get in a game.
Okay,
We'll
done.
we'll get all the Loyola music industry LA alumni and like buy a whole section at Dodger Stadium.
I love it. Tell John, put it on his
Yeah,
card.
yeah, we'll get Snyder on it too for sure. Anyway, so you had like this year that you were looking for work.
I was looking and I was like, what am I gonna do? I have this like to go back to your point, like I have these skills and I have, I made friends with artists. Oh, well, I guess at Ultra, I helped sign this artist Pell.
Oh yeah,
To
he's a New Orleans dude.
Yeah, New Orleans guy.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I met Pell through a friend of mine. Um, just liked his music, and the A&R at Ultra liked him as well, and he was in LA, and so I helped him do that, and I was like, oh, this is great. Love this. But there wasn't necessarily room for me to move. And that wasn't Ultra's fault. That's just the name of the game. Like,
right,
they hired me to be a sync person, and that just, they didn't. Right. So, but that's where I found that passion. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is what I want to do music. This is like why I want to be in music, right? But so, yeah, so that year, I took what I had learned and actually started a little sync pushing, like a sync company.
hmm,
So the same thing that I hated doing, I started, but because I mean, I kind of was like, I gotta do something. And I
right.
did have these contacts, from Ultra. Like I had built some relationships. And so I actually had a couple successes. I got like 3 songs on Insecure, I think.
That,
And
I
it
mean, that
was,
sounds like a win.
yeah, but it was like, okay, cool. Like hard work pays off. You know what I mean? Like don't quit on yourself. Um, and so then, yeah, about a year, I kind of like was, do I want to do, stuff by myself? But I still wanted to like learn more, and I felt like I hadn't, you know.
Yeah,
So
it's weird to be like 23 and like, okay, that's it.
yeah,
I'm out on my own.
yeah, that was 23, 24, I think. 25. I don't know. So, still, I mean, yeah. So and I wanted to learn more anyway. So I started to get some good like interviews with people. And, it's so funny. I basically got hired to be this guy's assistant, his manager. He was a manager. I got hired to be his assistant. And I was like, all right, like, it's time. Like, I'm back, And he, like, the Monday I was going to start, I didn't hear from him. It was so bad. I was like, wow, okay. Like, maybe, you know. But looking back, it's like doors closed for a reason because I think a week or two later, I started working at Rock Mafia, and they hired me their sync person. So my path has like been
So tell
so.
me about explain Rock Mafia. Tell the students like what that is.
Rock Mafia is a artist collective production house. They are responsible for the careers of Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, and so it's two people: Antonina Armato, who's a writer, and Tim James, who's more of a singer, producer. And they're incredible. They're just geniuses. And they took me. My friend Corey Berkowitz took me under his like we met because he had this artist, and so he brought me into the Rock Mafia family. So we have Elohim, or they have Elohim, and Bahari, who now I'm with. Yoshi
Go
Flower.
ahead and explain that relationship so we talked about this before I hit record, just so the students understand the context. What are you doing right now?
Oh, right now. Okay, so right now I am a I'm like the day to day slash like I'm the day to day manager for Bahari.
Okay, cool. Now go back to the Rock
Okay,
Mafia so they'll know where we're getting. All right.
gotcha. Yeah. So that is where I am today. So 2 years ago, I started with Rock Mafia doing sync for them because they have a huge catalog, right? Um, and so they needed someone to kind of like work it. So I was doing that, and then I was there for about a year. I'm still there. I was figuring it out. We're making stuff happen, and we have a studio in Santa Monica. So it's like 4 or 5 studios in this space. Artists come through all the time, so it's really just this like amazing space where artists and writers and just good people come and can like work. So it's very inspiring to be around artists all the time. I kind of fell back in love with music, and the process. There's something to spill in my kitchen. Just the process of like why music is so special, because I think everything that I had gone through was like it was hard.
Yeah.
Um, but and so yeah, like finding that like reinvigorating, I guess.
So did the physical space of Rock Mafia have something to do with why it worked? You're talking about artists coming through and all the studios and stuff. Do you think that like that physical situation was part of that success?
What do you mean the physical? Like just the fact that the studio is like everyone's.
Yeah, that there's artists coming and going, and there's like an energy to
Yeah.
certain spaces. Like
Yeah.
when I was in Los Angeles on that meters gig, we rehearsed at Third Encore, and there's
Oh
like
yeah.
multiple
Yeah.
studios there. So we're rehearsing with the meters in one, and like I'm trying to think of who, like Demi Lovato was rehearsing her tour on the other side, and oh, I, I forget who it was,
Third Encore is legit.
but it was another like cool band on the other side of us, and the two LA horn players who were on that gig like knew all of these people because these guys like were the horn section on Dancing with the Stars, and one of them was the arranger for them, and so they like know all these guys. And so we're like, we had taken a break and they realized who was there, so we go back and we're rehearsing, and then our door kind of creeps open, and it's like the whole band from next door like poking their head in like, dude, the meters are in there, that's so cool. So, but there's like an
I love
energy to
that.
that space. Like it, as much as we can spread out the music industry and do things over the internet like this or whatever, there still is like sometimes a thing to being around the people who are doing the things you want to do.
100%. 100%. I mean, to go to that energy, I mean, at Rock Mafia, there's crystals everywhere. It's really like, yeah, it really lends itself to, yeah, it's the energy is for fear sounding, trite, but like it's important because it's that collective, like music is so sacred.
Hmm.
It really is. Like, you know, it is. And I know that's maybe sounds corny, but like I think as people in music industry and artists and whatnot, like we have a responsibility to like, keep that secret and like put good stuff out and I don't know. I
So
know we
you were
should.
still doing sync stuff for them, and you're doing management now. How did that transition happen?
So I was like again, like I need to do more, get out of sync. Like it just wasn't my passion. I wanted to do more with the artists. And so in April of last year, Bahari was hanging out at the studio, and they're two just like the sweetest angels. And so we just became friends, really. Like you can ask that. Like we became homies, and they didn't have a manager at that point. They were kind of, but they had just recorded a song with Millennium called "Crashing," and they had just released a song called "Savage."
Hmm.
Which had been starting to pick up steam. And so, and yeah, they used to be a trio, and then now they're a duo. And so it was right at that time where they were transitioning, into like finding their ground again. And they're so talented. So it was this interesting time, I think, for the three of us without us knowing each other really. And then we all met officially. And it honestly started something as so simple as I was like, "Do you guys have merch? Like, do you have a sweatshirt or like a T-shirt that says Bahari?" And I'm like, "No, we actually don't." And so I hit up this friend of mine who was a manager who knew a merch guy, and we got some merch made. And that's kind of how we started working with each other. It was like, "Oh, like you guys are cool," and
It's like, okay, you got the t-shirts made, you're our manager now.
it was like almost. It was like, oh, because and then something else. So it was things like that. I was like, I'm here at the office. You know, if you guys need some help, like I would love to help you. And then, so that I think that was the first thing. The second thing is they went to film the music video for Crashing in Ukraine. And so while they were there, like I helped them get this Savage Snapchat filter set up. And so it was little things like that. And then the last thing was we were putting this song out called Sad Face. And purely was just like, this would be like, let's have a party. I don't know. And so my sister was managing this bar called Tenants of the Trees, and so we had a show there. And that was when it was like, all right, we're like, we all motivated each other. You know what I mean? I think at
Hmm.
the end of the day, it was just like us three girls, like, hey, we can do something if we actually like do something. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so that has flourished into, or that has like become this very, very special, strong relationship. And now we have, and so through that, you know, it was always like Bahari, and then I had my stuff at Rock Mafia, but it just started getting more and more and more and more. And that became really like my focus.
Right.
Because we did, yeah. And so that's,
So are you managing them through an agency? Is there a bigger team? Like, how's that set up?
so it's me and William. So William,
Clarify who William is for the
so William
students.
Dorella is this angel, I always say, that is just the sweetest person. And he's been mentoring me, and he he managed everyone. I mean, he managed William, the Black Eyed Peas, Prince Royce, you know, Fergie during like her hits, like John Legend's first couple albums. You know, I can go on. He's sold like 300 million records, billion. I don't know, but he knows what he's doing, and he's a very good person. And I think that's what what we needed, and what has just made us stronger. And so yeah, so he came into the picture. He's known them for a while, and so um, yeah, so I've lost my train of thought, but yeah, like
So,
he
so what's the arrangement? Like, he's the
William's a manager, and then I call myself the day to day, but he lets me do a lot. Like
right.
he gives me a lot of freedom, but but he's like the man, like he's our guy. So we work every single day. Like we talk. He's texting me right now. Like we work hand in hand. He's in New York. I'm in LA.
Well, it's
And
nice that he waited till 10:30 your time to text
oh
you.
no, I've been up for like 6 hours already. What time is
Yeah.
it? 10. Well, it's
Yeah.
funny. The things he always says to me. He's like, last to go to bed, first to wake up. And it's unfortunately like stuck in my head now, so I don't sleep. But it's, but it's great. But like, yeah, so that's the dynamic. He's very, I don't know. That's so he's like leads it, and then I'll do the stuff, but nothing is like above him either. Like he'll do stuff that like scheduling stuff,
Right.
and so it's kind of a tag team, but he's like the
So
boss.
for the forum students who haven't taken Billy's management class yet, give them an idea of like what a couple of days of your work are like. Like, what sorts of things are you doing?
Okay, so like let's see. So like on a day like what did I do on a day like Monday or whatever, Monday or Tuesday? I was up at 6 reading articles that like William had sent me. Um and then I started trying to like look what I actually did yesterday, because I think that's a very good question, because it's important to know that there's certain days where, oh my god, is so much stuff, and then the next day there I could be literally like going to get groceries at 2 p.m. or like
Right.
make, you know what I mean. And it's important to be able to go with that flow, because like you could become, it's rough.
Yeah,
And
because sometimes stuff comes up and this has to happen now.
yes,
And then there's other days where maybe you're just, I don't know, gathering information, planning for like whatever the next thing that's going to come up that has to happen right then, but you don't know that until you find out.
exactly. Exactly. So like, okay, so oh no, so this is a good Friday. I It was kind of a chill day. So I went and social distance. saw my friend Adam, and sitting outside, this other girl comes over, social distance, swear to God, three of us outside because it's important. And it's interesting as well because that, I do a lot of networking, and this is more or less like one of the first persons people that I had seen, like new music industry person that I met. So it's going to be interesting, like how networking happens in this day and age now. But we met, and she's a rep for a bunch of songwriters who are really awesome. And now we have a call. She sent over some demos, and now we have a call with her for Monday, or a couple days from now. So that's one example, and that's more or less all I did that day. But
Mhm.
an important, like, it was a good thing. Does that make, like, you're
Right.
right? So for me, I gauge, like, did I do any, like, as long as I do like one like concrete good thing, the day is not wasted. Um,
So you're talking about songwriters. Do Bahari write their
they
stuff
write
or
all their songs.
okay.
They write all their songs, but they do collaborate with other people. And if a
Right.
song, so if the song's a hit, then we just did. This is another day in the life thing. So that we just released a song, "Waking Up the Neighbors," 100% written by them, and it was so cool to see that creative process because something had happened the night before. The next day, they came into the studio, wrote the song, and it was like done, more or less. And they use it. They always talk about how they use the music as like a therapy session.
Hmm.
And it's awesome that it's the two of them because they live together, they're friends, they experience these things together, and they've known each other for so long, so they're able to like come together and like hash things out, and use music really powerfully. So I say, if you're a songwriter, like, write songs every day, like, keep a notebook all the time. And because it's so special to me when Natalia, Ruby and their Bahari will send me like voice notes of them just like, hey, I just had this idea, like, oh my, that's the specialist. I know it's not a word. That's like just the most
We'll
special
count it.
thing.
Yeah.
It's like artists and musicians and songwriters and whatever, like, they have this talent, this gift that I don't have. And so, yeah, the songwriting process has been really amazing to like see happen. Yeah.
So when you hooked up with them, did you have in your mind that you wanted to like go into management? How intentional was that move?
Not at all. I had, during that year of not having like a job, I worked with two artists, one producer and one guy, and I was actually trying to do management, but I didn't know what I was doing. I just liked some of the artists, and everyone was saying to me, "Oh, you should be a manager," But it, like I said, I didn't know anybody. I applied to actually a lot of management jobs during that year. I didn't hear from anybody.
Well, it's funny. So do you think you get pigeonholed, like you come out and start doing sync stuff and then you try to get a management job and they're like, "Oh, she's a sync person."
Right. I think part of it, might be that, but I'm so glad that I had that sync opportunity because I knew the different side of the business. You know what I mean? Um,
So is
and
that something y'all are doing now as the management team for this group trying to get placements for their music?
a little Epic has a sync team. So it's like,
So to clarify, they just signed to Epic.
yeah. So that was I wrote something down. I wanted to, like, I was like trying to think of like things that I've gone through that like I really would like to impart because this is a crazy business, and it's really rough, but like, you always got to be true to yourself. I know that sounds cliche, but and you want to make friends that are like your people, if that makes sense. Like, don't.
What Billy would call values aligned.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. 100, Billy, like, I swear to God, like, I think about that class a lot. I really do, because you got to treat people with goodness and respect, and like everything, everyone's going through something, and this industry is really, it's really hard because you see people that, have these plaques, who might be younger than you, who might have not, done as much as you. But everyone's on their own path. and you cannot compare yourself to anybody else. Um, uh, but oh, the intention of management you said, right? What
Yeah.
was the
Well, and then we had sort of gotten to Epic. So they signed with
oh, so
Epic.
Epic. Oh, so
Is
the reason I brought
is
this,
is that record out or
yeah, it's out.
okay?
But so the whole reason Epic happened is because I had a friend Brooke who I met a couple years ago, and we just like stayed homies. And she introduced us to this A&R at Epic, and we went to the Post Malone show, and that's kind of how it all happened, you know. But it was just like this melding, like all these worlds coming together, and it was like timing. You know what I mean? It's like
I'm
everyone's hard work collectively.
I'm sure a lot of students are wondering like what needs to happen to get signed like to a label like Epic. Did they have how much music had they recorded at that point? Like what are you giving to this A&R at Epic to say here's this band? Is it like demos? Is it their fully produced previous record? Like what's that exchange like?
So it all started actually. We have this song Savage, which I mentioned earlier, and it had amassed almost 15 million streams at this point. And the song came out at the end of 2018, I think. Yeah, the end of 2018. And it was moving. And no, and the data was good, you know, so we
Mhm.
could go to a record label and be like, look, there's no Spotify playlisting. This is purely like algorithmic, like the fans love it. So that was like a feather in the cap, as they say.
Right.
Um, so that was one thing. And then um, we had just finished recording and shooting the music video for Waking Up the Neighbors, which just came out as well, July 31st. Um, and so we had those two things. And I think, oh, and we were looking to find a featured artist on Savage because like there was movement. So, you know, we wanted to see if we could do something. And so those were like the two, we had a really strong new single with a really, really strong visual, and Savage was still growing.
Mhm.
So we were like, let's like repackage it. And so the team thought of Tyler Yahweh as a featured artist, and he signed with Epic. And so that's that's how it happened. Really, it was. I sent it over to my friend Brooke, like I said. Hey, can we like? Do you know anyone that can put us in touch? And then she's like, well, actually, the A&R really likes Bahari, so let's set up a meeting. And you know, then he hears the whole team. Well, so then we went to the forum and met him physically, and then he's like, cool, let's have a meeting. But he, you know, and then he knows who's involved and whatnot. So the A&R really likes to know who the team is as well, because you know, you can be excited about the artist, but the artist can't, you know,
Right. You
artist
can
needs
be excited about the artist, but if you hate their manager, you can't really work with them.
exactly. Or if the manager has no experience, you know, the A&R is not going to be as exciting, because the one thing I've learned now working with a label is you still have to do the work as a manager. You almost have to like guide. I mean, the people at Epic are amazing. They're just sweet and they care, and they've been hustling for us. But I think it's a balancing act. You know what I mean? Like the label has to see that you guys are working so that they want to do stuff and that you know what you're doing. So going back though to the label, that was the day before Thanksgiving. We had this
Mhm.
meeting with Epic and we played them the music video. I remember because I was on my way down to Thanksgiving with my family, and I was like, "Oh my god! Like we just had this awesome, you know, meeting, and we didn't sign the record deal. Well, it was like official, I think, in December. It was like, all right, we're gonna do this, but we didn't sign until February or
Just because it takes that long to get the
end
paperwork
of
together and
yeah. It took a minute. I mean, it was a long deal. It was a long papered
like
deal.
the negotiation. So how much of that stuff is negotiable in that context? Like Epic says, here we want to do this, and then y'all come back and say, well, no, but we want that also. Like how
Yeah.
much of that happens at that level?
So personally, I wasn't super like privy to all of the, you know, nuts and
Right.
bolts of it. I mean, I was lucky enough to like know a lot of it, but a lot was able to be like negotiated more than I thought was possible, to be
Yeah.
honest. More than
So
I think
William
what the
did all that.
media. Yes, and he's smart. I mean, he knew what to ask for, and he knows, and he's an artist. Like he fights for the artist, like um, they'll have the rights. Like it's not they're not giving everything up. It's almost a partnership in a sense, and um, so it's super super important to know what you're signing and to get um, second opinions
Hmm.
because I'm talking. There's certain artists friends that I have that are in deals that they signed because they needed some money. Like I get it, it's rough. Like I get it, but then it's like, fuck, they're in a bad deal. Um, and so it's really important, yeah, to just make sure you're not like you read the fine print.
Yeah. I find the interesting thing about the whole story of them signing with Epic is that it actually comes back to like a weird little networking thing. We talk about remember, make friends, meet people, keep in touch, whatever, so that your friend Brooke wasn't the A&R, just happened to work over, right? That there's this weird like, oh, I remember her. We did something together and got
Mm-hmm.
along in
Yeah.
that thing of keeping in touch. I mean, even the way this interview happened, I'll tell the story. I got a text the other day from Maeve that said, I accidentally hit your name in my phone, so I thought I would just check in and say, hi, what's up? How's it going? And I responded and said, oh, it's good to hear from you. How are you? By the way, I'm trying to do an alumni focus on forum this year. Let's do an interview. And that was, I think, on Tuesday. Today's Thursday. So,
Seriously, this is how it
yeah.
happened. It was so funny. I love
Yeah, it
it.
was great. And I was very happy to hear from you.
Yeah.
So what's one thing that you wish someone would have said to you when you were sitting in the seats in forum instead of being the guest? Maybe
That's
not in forum, but when you were in college,
just
like
like
what's
advice.
something you wish someone would have told you that you learned later?
This game is not a race. This is not a race.
I love that.
It's not like if there's any, I remember literally being at Loyola and there were people that were managing and already having success, and it's like what, you know, but it's like that's great, and applaud them like always. Like don't be jealous. Like applaud them because it's hard work, and if you really really like work at something, like it will come. But you have to like keep that passion. Like don't. So that's one thing, and I don't know. Like I'm pretty chill. Like I think I got caught up a little bit sometimes in like the glitz and glamour. Um, but not for long. Like it's
Right.
so but that is, I
Well, I
mean, it's
mean, you live in Los Angeles. You are supposed to go to fancy parties, right? Like that's part of the thing, isn't it?
it's part of the thing. Yeah, and I think you should pick and choose, like what you want to spend your energy with and spend your time with, and um because there's a lot of distractions, right? But at the end of the day, it's about music.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess the one of the other things I'll say, oh, you know what? This actually means this is what I really wish somebody would tell me is that it's okay if you don't have like a mentor at first, or it's okay if um, like for me, I always thought that like I needed to have some mentor to like be, my person so that I could succeed. Or just like I felt like, oh, someone, was like good, like watching out for me, I guess.
Hmm.
Because this game, it can be really lonely. It can be really, really lonely. But there are, so it's like, it's okay. And you should have a mentor like come to you genuinely. There are some people that will be like, oh, I want to mentor you. And I don't know if that's like right. I mean, I kind of just like I can just contradict myself. But what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
but those
yeah,
things happen naturally.
yeah, and if you do have a mentor and things like don't work out, like that's okay. That's not like that's don't let that like, affect you or like feel like you're not worth something. Like, I think when the right person, almost like comes along, like that, it will be beneficial, and
Hmm.
it'll be really great. And so that was one thing I kind of struggled with, like coming up, thinking, oh, did I make the wrong decision in leaving Buna Murray, and um, but in the end, like you gotta take risks, like you have to, or else you would still be at square one, and like wishing you would have done something different, I guess.
Well, and it seems like it worked well for you because in our text conversation the other day, when I said, "What are you up to?" you said, "I'm doing management," and I could tell it was even like there was excitement in the tone of the text. It was like, "Oh, I found this thing that I'm doing, and I love it."
I do. I mean, for me personally, like music is all about community and just like being able to like touch people and reach people, and especially in this time right now where it's just like so confusing and there's so much hate and there's just it's like, you know, no matter what you think about politics or whatever, but like it's just, and music has that ability to heal, and so I love that. For me, working with the artists, like I said, you reach the whole scope of, I guess, the industry.
Yeah.
You touch every single facet, but then you also um, get to create these really special bonds with artists and who care, and so it's I'm very honored to have this opportunity because it's, you have people's lives in your hands. It's nothing to be taken lightly. And I'm glad I'm older. I mean, not older, but like I'm glad I've had some, time to kind of see the industry and work in certain different facets, to be able to almost meet the moment. I have so much
Hmm.
more to grow and learn. I'm just starting, but like, you know, um, that it's a journey, and like everyone has their own journey. And yes, I'm I'm very happy.
That's a
Yeah,
perfect spot for me to stop the recording.
I love that. I know we talked so much.